There is a scene in this movie where masked murderer Jason, now a spirit in possession of a police officer, tries to vomit a slug monster into a baby's mouth. What? You know, I like my channel to be about positivity whenever it can be. So much of YouTube is angry, cynical, sarcastic and jaded. There's a predominant approach people have to media on here where they're prone to approaching it with this kind of emotional disengagement and a smart mouth. A kind of feeling like you're somehow above whatever thing you're looking at. And don't get me wrong, this isn't meant as some kind of call out or anything, because to an extent, I don't blame anyone for this. Unfortunately, that's what gets you the clicks. I should know, I was one of those people, and I was a lot more popular then. Thing is, being negative all of the time is kind of exhausting. And personally, I always took more joy in championing something I loved rather than knocking down something I didn't, regardless of what the view counts came out to be. Plus, I feel like there's already enough of that kind of brand of YouTuber out there, but nowhere near enough to counterbalance all that. So I made a conscious decision some time back to be a channel of celebration. Because I think stories, even a lot of the bad ones, are often worth celebrating. I mean, just on the topic of say movies alone, I genuinely consider almost every film ever made to be some kind of fucking miracle. The idea that somehow after the invention of the camera, humanity very quickly went, hey, what if we got like hundreds, sometimes even thousands of people from all over the world and from all different walks of life with totally different and previously not at all complementary skill sets, from makeup to stunt work to cooking to theatre to costuming to music to animation to knowing how to somehow skillfully use light bulbs artistically. Yeah, what if we got all those people who often have never even met one another before, bring them all together and use every single one of their incredible talents just to, you know, tell a story. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? That's mental. Do you ever stop and think about how actually incredible and insane that is? We take films for granted now as just an obvious accepted part of culture that has always been there and always will be, but it's kind of unbelievable that this happened even once. Never mind 500,000 times, and never mind that some of them were actually good despite the chaos it takes to organise such a wild task. So naturally, with this in mind, I just don't get a lot out of needlessly shitting on said miracles. It wasn't that I was being dishonest before, I'm not in a rush to suddenly say nice things about Fantastic Four or anything, it's just that I wanted a change in focus. I'm still critical of things whenever it feels appropriate, but the way I approach that criticism is different. I like to look at the lessons we can take from where things go wrong and try to find the good parts in otherwise flawed items and celebrate those aspects. So I say all this because I really want you to understand that I do not take this statement lightly. When I say Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, really, truly, completely fucking sucks. I will now attempt to explain what Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, is all about. The film starts, as most of these movies now do, by forgetting the previous entry ever happened. Jason is no longer in Manhattan, he is no longer turned into a child, which to be fair was a weird ass ending, so that's no bad thing, and he is inexplicably back in Crystal Lake. Only this time, he looks awful. This design has its defenders, so if you like it, more power to you. But for me, I just find it to be the absolute worst design for the character they've ever had. He's got this bulging looking brain-like head that comes out in lumps between the straps of his mask. His mask is really tiny and pressed into his face, and he has these horrible little strands of wispy hair growing from what looks like halfway down his head that are so barely noticeable they might as well not be there, but just noticeable enough to be distracting. It's a totally needless overcomplication of what was an already perfected iconic look. I feel bad for Kane Hodder here because he's clearly the actor who cares the most about the character of Jason, but boy did he get lumped with some of his worst outings, and in this case, his worst visual. I think they're trying to go for a more gross looking Jason to fit in with the grosser, gorier tone of the movie, but it doesn't look off-putting in a way that makes the audience uncomfortable with his presence, it just looks bad. Plus, when it comes to the swollen head lumps, I can't see them as anything other than fleshy cornrows. You see it too, right? Tell me it's not just me. That's not a bad hairstyle on actual people, by the way. Don't think I'm insulting anyone who has that hairstyle. I'm just saying it looks real silly on Jason. Anyway, this horrible mess of a Jason is chasing his latest potential victim through Crystal Lake Woods, but surprise, it's an FBI sting? Turns out the camper was actually an undercover agent acting as bait to lure out Jason so the FBI could blow him up. And they do! No, I am not making this up. And now exploded Jason's parts are taken back to a research facility where a coroner examines the remains. Upon doing so, he finds that Jason's giant heart, independent of all other organs and body parts, is still beating. And then, and let me just preface this by saying this is where it gets real weird, for some reason, he decides to eat the heart. Just goes to town on it like it's a bag of Monster Munch and he's clamming for some pickled onion flavour. It's not at all scary, it's just kinda gross. I get that on paper there was like a supernatural force compelling him to do this, but that does not come across in the film's execution. So this scene just plays out like the dude suddenly fancied a snack. It's a huge what the fuck moment, but not in the way I think they were hoping for, as it's more baffling than shocking. Especially when this action causes him to inexplicably roar like a dinosaur. Moving on, apparently because the dude ate the heart, this then allows Jason to send out these weird orange light ball soul orb things into the guy and take over his body. And I guess we're meant to infer that Jason was really these weird soul orbs all along, as the very next scene sees this character say pretty much just that.
What you think of as Jason is not Jason. That body he's wearing, that's just me. That boy knows how to dress. He wears other people's bodies like folks wear a suit. Or he may get blown up, but that's just a little minor inconvenience for him. He'll just get himself another body. This
is Creighton Duke, a bounty hunter on the trail of Jason who threatens to be the only likeable thing about this movie by being a somewhat intriguing concept and character, but destroys any hope of that by in the immediate following scene choosing to be an inexplicably sleazy creep.
Why don't you blow me, Chief? Right after your girlfriend there gets through.
That's my lady you're talking about.
Well, now, see, she is only your lady because she ain't had a taste of the Duke yet.
So Duke sucks? Well, okay, that's not fair. He's actually probably the best part of the movie, and outside of this interaction, he's never really lecherous again, but that only makes the inclusion of this line that much weirder, especially since the guy is supposed to be there to help this woman. You see, now that Jason has possessed that coroner, he's off killing again, and is trying to bring himself back to his true form, aka Cornrows Jason. And it turns out Jason had a sister, something that's just kind of thrown out there with very little fanfare. And that's this lady, who Creighton has tracked down because she's now in danger as Jason needs her or another Voorhees to rebirth himself as his old hockey mask self because the bodies he's hopping between now aren't good enough or something, and he apparently, I guess, knows he has this sister who has never been mentioned before because he's hunting her down now, and in order to return to himself he has to kill her, or if not her then one of her kids or grandkids, because as long as he takes over someone technically in the Voorhees bloodline then he can become hockey mask Jason again. But also, those same family members are the only threat to him because apparently Jason is legit immortal, and Duke, for some reason, somehow knows that the only thing that can kill Jason is destroying his heart with like a mystical dagger he inexplicably owns, but apparently it only kills him if it's another Voorhees who wields it. And this is just the epitome of where this whole film really all goes wrong, isn't it? It's not a story, is it? It's a fan wiki article section labelled lore. It's just this pile of needlessly overcomplicated and overindulgent rules and retcons and revisions and mythos without any substance or reason for these changes. You don't even have to think about it really to know that none of this makes any sense. Jason can only be killed by another Voorhees? What? Why? Didn't seem that way when Tommy killed him in part 4. And how does Jason know any of this? And why is he this supernatural light ball thing, but also later in the movie a weird slug monster that crawls out of a dude's neck and attacks people? It's so messy. What is the point in any of this? What is any of it really about? For the sake of not wanting to relive much more of this, I'll just sum up the rest of the film's events really quickly, and I'm hoping as well that when blasted out rapid fire like this, you'll see just how much of it is just nonsensical and weird. Jason, as the coroner, goes and kills some campers, and then one of the 2 policemen that go to investigate the scene. He then kidnaps the other officer, strips him naked, ties him to a table at his old family house and shaves him. I swear I'm not making this up. Like, he has the footage. This is real. This is a real thing that happened. Jason vomits his evil possession slug, which is apparently his soul, I am reliably informed by the Friday the 13th wiki, into the kidnapped officer's mouth, and then proceeds to go and kill his sister. His sister bites the dust, but this dude Steven, her daughter's ex, arrives at the scene just in time to fight him off before he can do his whole form return magic consumption thing. Police arrive on the scene shortly after, and Steven gets the blame for the murder. He gets put in a cell where he meets Duke, who explains to him all this garbage about how to kill Jason and all the family ties and that crap. But there's this extremely weird thing where he insists on breaking Steven's fingers before he'll give him any information. If you're wondering why this man insists on such an unusual, strange and nonsensical form of payment, or why after this scene Steven's fingers seem absolutely fine and these injuries are never a hindrance nor ever mentioned again, well, it's obviously because shut up. Steven escapes jail, tracks down his ex Jessica, the next woman in the Voorhees bloodline, and tries to get her to believe all this inane bullshit. Which she doesn't at first, but she comes round to it when her current boyfriend, a sensationalist crime TV show host, gets possessed by Jason and tries to do a murder on her. So Jessica and Steven decide to work together to try and stop Jason. Long story short, they end up at the Voorhees house with their baby, and Jason, now in possession of another officer, tries to trick Jessica by suddenly talking like a sentient human and pretending he's on her side, something he never demonstrated the ability to do in the film prior to this moment. And then, when he gets a chance, he grabs her kid and tries to put his soul in the baby with the aforementioned slug vomit thing. But Steven attacks him with a machete, so Jason, or maybe Jason's soul or Jason's heart, I'm not sure how you want to define this thing, crawls out of this host's neck as a kind of little slimy muppet thing and hides in the basement. But it turns out Jessica's mom's body is in there because earlier in the movie, Jessica's TV show host boyfriend absurdly stole her mother's corpse and put it there for a big reveal on his TV show. This movie is fucking stupid. Even by the standards of a series that later on in its franchise actively rolled into and thrived on stupidity, this is intelligence insultingly dumb beyond comprehension. Carrying on, slimy wet Muppet Jason gets into his dead sister's body and becomes slimy wet hockey mask Jason. How does he do this, you ask? With the implication that he crawls into her vagina. This film, I swear to fucking God. Now Hockey Mask Jason is back, there's a final showdown between him and the heroes. I do actually appreciate this bit where they drop the knife in the hole. That's a good way to raise the stakes in the final conflict, I'll give them that. Although on the other hand, it does make the movie just that little bit longer, so no bonus points there. Ultimately though, Jessica stabs Jason, which causes him to be dragged to hell by demon hands, which would almost make for a cool shot if they weren't comically oversized and looked like the paws of something out of Sesame Street. Jessica and Steven kiss and make up, the day is saved, no more Jason, we get an admittedly killer final shot, and mercifully the film ends after the single longest 90 minutes of my entire life. Oh boy, it is hard to find good things to say about this movie. I guess you could argue it definitely switches up the formula the most. That's something. I mean, not in any way that's at all good, but it's certainly different. Honestly, the most positive things I can say are no more than a few small bullet points. I like it when the Necronomicon from Evil Dead appears. When that happened, I pointed at the screen and went, oh, that's the Necronomicon from Evil Dead, that is. So that's fun, I guess. I really like the final shot where Freddy Krueger's gloved hand comes out of the ground and picks up Jason's mask. That's a cool teaser. Had I seen that at the time of release and not known Freddy vs. Jason was going to be a thing, I'd have been appropriately hyped up. There's a reference to The Thing, which is another movie I enjoy. Not a particularly good reference, but it's there, I guess. In a rare moment of praise for something that isn't just a reference to better stuff, there is also a dude that melts at one point after Jason leaves his body. I have no idea why the dude melts, but I like the melting dude. It's a cool effect. Big thumbs up on the melting dude, even if it doesn't make much sense. But you know, other than the odd practical effects and the couple of times it reminds me of actually good movies that I like, this has almost nothing going for it. Like, it is shockingly bad. Almost bafflingly so. You usually find with films this awful, there's something to take away from them still. Either so bad it's good quality, like you can have a good time with enjoying the car crash of messy ideas and executions, or it'll have that kind of morbid curiosity vibe going for it, where you'll spend most of the film going, fucking what? You might think that The Final Friday fits into one of those little categories of enjoyment. You probably thought when I described in the opening of this video that this film has a scene where a policeman possessed by Jason tries to vomit a slug monster into a baby's mouth, my god, that sounds fucking dreadful. But holy shit, do I want to see how bad this movie gets, because that at least sounds like an entertaining experience. But perplexingly, the film somehow, despite being a movie about a ghost murderer exploded by the FBI trying to turn himself back into a hockey mask zombie by vomiting slugs into people's mouths, manages to be so fucking dull. It's honestly astonishing. Every single frame of this thing is somehow both ludicrous and insane, and yet it will put you to sleep. It's somehow both this absolute asspull of a contradicting, contrived, and overly complex sea of ideas, and yet it's also the cinematic equivalent of watching paint dry. How is this film boring? Literally how? It doesn't just jump the shark, it leaps the ocean. Surely you would think there's some nonsensical entertainment value in that, and yet no! It's fucking laborious. I knew when I had planned to do this wholesome Halloween sequel that I'd be watching some incredibly bad films. It's no secret that a lot of these slasher franchises resorted to cash-ins of diminishing quality as the series would go on, but this is the only time the watching portion of making a video felt like work. It was a chore to get through this. I said The Nightmare on Elm Street 6 might be one of the worst films I'd ever seen, but at least that one had the decency to be such bollocks that I couldn't help but be somewhat entertained at how bafflingly bad it was. With Final Friday though, it felt like it just went on forever. It is such a spectacular failure, made even more unfathomable when you consider that it is almost impossible to mess up Friday the 13th. Even 5, which controversially got rid of Jason, at least appeased some fans by otherwise sticking to a tried and true formula. And while I guess I'll commend the Final Friday for maybe shaking things up a bit and taking a bit more risks, what the fuck is this end result, lads? This is bewildering. Ask yourself, who is this for? Because this isn't just hindsight talking. I feel like absolutely anyone could have looked at that script and immediately went, oh, fans are gonna hate this. But equally, it's not like it has much other mainstream appeal either. Was there really anyone demanding a gross out supernatural body swap murder movie wrapped up in corny and puzzling family legacy bloodline shtick? It reeks of the kind of lazy, exposition heavy, lore straddled throwaway writing of some straight to video sci-fi bargain bin trash thrown together to make a quick buck. But it's not only a theatrical release, it's a mainline title in one of the biggest horror franchises of all time. It still made a healthy amount of money, of course. These films up to this point were seemingly incapable of doing anything but turn around a chunky bit of profit. But financial success aside, the film is a failure on every other level. It's not even good on a technical basis. Some of the lighting in this film is so bad you legitimately can't tell what the hell is going on. Especially in the final act where everything has this dull blue filter over it to make it look moody, but in actuality all it achieves is a total lack of any contrast, making foreground and background constantly blend together. I mean, look at this. What is this? What am I looking at here? It's such a mess. It's already writing on bad script ideas, but it's like it makes a conscious effort to create the worst possible execution of those bad ideas. Turning Jason into some weird body-hopping parasite demon is already an extremely questionable creative decision, but you know, at least if you are going to do that, maybe don't make it look like a fucking boglin. I just don't even know how to process this film. How did this even happen? How did this script and these concepts get passed through so many hands and approved to get to production stage? How did a studio look at this and go, yeah, we can give this $3 million? I just don't understand what took place here. I can only imagine that New Line, having bought the rights, were just desperate to get something with this character out there to justify their expense, and they just went with whatever came across their desks first. Either that or previous drafts were so bad that what we're seeing is just the end result of a touched up compromise. Still rotten to the core, but put out on a basis of, we've spent a lot of time changing this thing and at least it's better now? Worryingly, I'm inclined to believe it's the latter. And there's a worse version of this movie in someone's document somewhere, as apparently there's a draft of this film that opened with a flashback to some pretty uncomfortable and tasteless shit that I'm not sure I can read out without getting demonetized. So I guess I'll link it in the description for those curious. But be aware, if you're gonna check it out, content warning for a description of a scene of a sexually traumatic nature that could be potentially distressing to some readers. I'd be more specific, but I'm worried YouTube may pull this video if I am. Needless to say though, it's not great. So perhaps then, the garbage we got is a mercy. A tacky decoy movie. He had to take the bullet of critical scorn from fans and professionals alike, but all the while silently protecting us from getting an even worse production that I can only assume would have been so bad its release could have destroyed the planet. Perhaps Jason Goes to Hell is our saviour, our silent guardian, our watchful protector, our Dark Knight. Or maybe it's just an awful movie that went through some redrafts and still came out bad. Very likely that one. I don't like this film and I'm glad I'm finished talking about it. If I never have to watch this one again, it'll still be too soon. I do not recommend it, even as a morbid curiosity. It's just a deeply bad, miserable slog. The kindest praise I could possibly give to it is that at some point, it's over. Much like this video, remember to like, comment and subscribe to my OnlyDans at the red button below. And if you've really enjoyed it and would like to gain access to a bunch of other cool perks while supporting the channel, then you can become a patron at the link in the description below. And other than that, I've been Dan Drambles, you're watching Wholesome Halloween 2 Slasher Season, and I'll see you again tomorrow as we take one final solo trip with Jason. But this time, we go to space! Jason X right here tomorrow, same skeleton time, same skeleton channel. I'll see you then.